As you might expect when shooting a movie, the constant flow of issues and impromptu solutions mean that tweaks need to be made to the script and the shooting schedule. As a result, ideas that once flowed as smoothly as my thick hair in year 10 are now rough and patchy like my hair in year 11 and had to be cut out entirely. This has meant that we, as an audience, have been denied some of the more fantastical, strange and quirky sides of cinema without even knowing it. Yet that doesn't mean that we can't dream about what could have been thanks to rare behind-the-scenes shots/photos and clips sourced by directors and fans. So let's raise a glass and toast those that couldn't make it today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 behind-the-scenes glimpses of movie scenes we never got to see. Number 10. Cyborg visits his own grave. Justice League. It's of course no secret that a ton of footage shot for Zack Snyder's Justice League was ultimately left on the cutting room floor, and for reasons that have unfortunately inflamed the masses, namely that the film had to come in at no more than 2 hours thanks to an order sent through by Warner Brothers themselves. So now we have the signs, the petitions and the complaints demanding the Snyder cut, a fire that Snyder and his colleagues have been keen to tease with snaps that never made it to the theatre. Most recently, Snyder and cinematographer Fabian Wagner posted images to social media of a sequence where Victor Stone visits his family's burial plot and sees his own grave. Given how little impact Cyborg ultimately made in Justice League, clearly there's a version of the movie that at least tried to develop Victor more. And you know what? Yeah, I hate to get on this bandwagon, but I would like to see that. Give me the Snyder cut! Number 9. E.T. creeps on Elliot's mother. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Okay, so here's the thing. I have to put my hands up here and say that I am in the mass minority in that I absolutely hate E.T. As a kid, I couldn't understand why my mates were raving about a ball bag who made a bike fly and used his LED finger for mischief. As an adult, I can at least appreciate the charm, but it's still not my cup of tea, as I always felt there was something a bit off with E.T. itself. And wouldn't you know it, this shot that never made it to DVD nor theatres confirms my suspicions that E.T. is in fact a peep and creeper. Now the scene featured E.T. making his way into the bedroom of Elliot's mother Mary while she's sleeping topless. How do we know this? Well, in 2012, a book commemorating the film's 30th anniversary revealed 2 production stills confirming the rumours to be true. E.T. waddles into the room in a bathrobe and reportedly leaves a handful of Reese's Pieces on her pillow as a gift. I just, come on, dude. If you want to do it right, you ask to come in and leave her with pearls, not pieces. That's what I do to their mums, you little scrote. And also, my one per list. It's obvious why this scene was cut, what with the tone shift being about as hard as being punched in the face, but it's still fascinating nonetheless. Number 8. The Monster. Bird Box. Netflix's smash hit post-apocalyptic horror film Bird Box famously never reveals the supernatural creatures which prompt anyone who looks at them to commit suicide, which is probably one of the smartest horror decisions made in recent memory. But that actually wasn't the original plan during the production. Screenwriter Eric Heiserer confirmed that the producers begged him to write a scene that revealed the creatures, so he came up with a nightmare sequence where Mallory encounters one of these entities. Thanks to a now deleted Instagram post from the special effects team SFX Atlas, we can see what the monster would have looked like. A rather terrifying, cherub-like creature that would have apparently been given CGI tentacles in post-production. Now thankfully this was never used, as it looks pretty ridiculous, and as it turned out the scene ended up being too unintentionally funny to pass muster, so it was eventually cut from the final film. Number 7. Luke defends the Rebel base. The Empire Strikes Back. Star Wars is no stranger to having extra content added into its re-releases and special editions, but even with all of those additional pieces, there's still a fair few scenes that didn't make it to the glut of home releases. Case in point, we have a rare glimpse of a deleted scene from early on in The Empire Strikes Back, where Luke Skywalker defends Hoth's Echo base with a laser cannon mounted on top of a transport, which he reportedly fires at an attacking Wampa. Now sadly, there's precious little information available about the scene or why it was cut, but it confirms that the already spectacular Hoth sequence had even more planned action that fans never got to see. And that being said, it was a pretty action-packed section to begin with. Number 6. The FANTASTICAR, Fantastic Four. Much like Justice League, 2015's Fantastic Four reboot was thoroughly mangled in post-production, and if you believe director Josh Trank, there's a far better cut of the movie that fans will unfortunately never get to see. Whether or not it would have been in fact better or not, it's clearly significantly expanded compared to the cut-down and anemic version that we got in cinemas. For example, this behind-the-scenes B-roll for the film actually revealed that yes, the Fantastic Four's signature flying vehicle, the FANTASTICAR, was originally part of the film, with on-set footage showing the cast acting alongside the car, both in a fully practical environment and against a green screen. The car appears to have sustained some major damage, presumably at the hands of Dr. Doom, but all we got to witness in the film was only a verbal mention of the vehicle. A shame. Number 5. Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly, Back to the Future. Back to the Future is one of those films that through circumstance and change became one of the most revered pieces of cinema of the 80s and beyond. However, it could have all been so different had they gone with the original plans. For example, the original working title was Spaceman from Pluto. The DeLorean was originally going to be a time machine within a fridge, and Marty McFly was first played by Eric Stoltz instead of Michael J. Fox. Now that's not to say that Fox wasn't the first choice, it was just that scheduling conflicts prevented him from taking the part. As a result, Stoltz was hired as a replacement. Yet 4 weeks into shooting, Zemeckis decided that Stoltz was miscast and dismissed him from the role, at which point Fox's schedule opened up and he was able to accept the part. Now weirdly, because of the footage that was shot, we can now look at this short time that Stoltz had in the role through photos and small clips as an almost alt timeline to a film about alt timelines. Ow, my brain. Number 4. The alternate ending, The Shining. Now this is a very special case indeed, because believe it or not, this deleted scene from the climax of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining actually did make it into the original theatrical release for a whole week. The scene shows Wendy Torrance in hospital as she's informed by Overlook manager Stuart Ullman that Jack's body wasn't recovered, before Ullman then gives a tennis ball to young Danny, presumably the same tennis ball that Jack is seen throwing around during the film. But Kubrick quickly decided that he didn't care for this epilogue and demanded that these shots be completely cut, resulting in projectionists having to cut the film themselves and then send the extra footage back to Warner Brothers. Fans have been desperately hoping that a copy of this scene might one day surface, because for now they have to make do with a script and just a few shots of blurry Polaroid images. Number 3. MacReady's blow-up doll, The Thing. Oh my, I guess it's time for me to talk about one of my favourite films, and say it with me, kids, of all time, John Carpenter's The Thing. This film is pretty much my go-to for body horror, technical shooting skill, and script direction, and hell, who doesn't want to see Kurt Russell pour whiskey over a computer and calling it a cheating bitch, eh? Well, for a time, this wasn't the only comedic scene in this sci-fi horror, as originally there was going to be a scene in which MacReady blows up what appears to be a balloon, but then it's revealed to be a blow-up doll. It would at least pay off with a scare later, as Niles would accidentally bump into the doll and, in his terror, accidentally pop it. Carpenter's rationale for cutting this character from the movie hasn't been made clear, but to be honest, it's probably because it would lend more fuel to the fire that the blow-up doll was actually also assimilated, and I don't need even more questions about that. Number 2. Frodo-Gollum, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Peter Jackson has done an incredible, exhaustive job of ensuring that Lord of the Rings fans have access to as much supplementary and deleted material as possible, but there are some scenes that ultimately didn't even make it into the trilogy's lengthy extended editions. Perhaps the most infamous and intriguing example is a sequence from The Two Towers, where Faramir dreams of Frodo's future, where the One Ring has consumed his soul and transformed him into a golem-like creature that kind of looks like Josh at the end of an all-weekend binger being told that he can't have another can. The scene was first revealed on the film's video home release, with a few images and seconds of footage showing off Elijah Wood undergoing the extensive makeup process to resemble Gollum. It looks fantastic, to be honest, but unfortunately, we'll never get to see it. And number 1, the custard pie fight, Dr. Strangelove. Stanley Kubrick strikes again, though this time he thankfully figured out that he didn't like a scene before the film was actually sent to cinemas. His Cold War masterwork, Dr. Strangelove, was originally intended to conclude with a custard pie fight breaking out in the war room, yet in Kubrick's own words, he decided it was not consistent with the satiric tone of the rest of the film. The studio was also reportedly worried about a moment in which Peter Sellers takes a pie to the face and George C. Scott remarks, "Our beloved president has been infamously struck down by a pie in the prime of his life. Are we going to let this happen? Massive retaliation!" Given that the film was test screened shortly after John F. Kennedy's assassination and was released barely 2 months later, it is plausible to see why they would be worried. Either way, an extensive and incredible gallery of images from the scene has since found its way online, confirming that while it likely would have been fascinating to watch, Kubrick probably made the right call ending with actual nuclear annihilation instead. And there we go, those were 10 behind-the-scene glimpses of movie scenes that we never got to see. I hope that you enjoyed that, my friends, and I hope that you also enjoy whatever you're getting up to today, whatever your walk of life. As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome, never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye!